Welcome to Pathways to Success, where we aim to build and encourage diversity among health professionals. Through casual conversations with trainees and professionals, our goal is to support the social and emotional well-being of aspiring doctors of color. Here, you can get tips on writing personal statements, interviewing, networking, school selections, and much more. Join us as we inspire and nurture the next generation of Black doctors.
Hello again. Thank you for joining us on Pathways to Success, a broadcast of the Austin Black Physicians Association, ABPA. We are very excited to have our special guests with us. My co-host and I, Grace, are looking forward to talking about networking. We did have one session prior to this one where we addressed networking through the perspective of the mentor. And so today we're changing the lens a bit. We're going to be talking to some young professionals who will share their experiences about networking through the lens of being mentees along the way. But Grace is going to lead us in this discussion today. So that's another reason why I'm excited. I love empowering the next generation. So take it away, Grace.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Grace, and I am a third-year pharmacy student. Today, we have the beautiful Eloise and Christine, who are going to tell us a little bit about their journey to networking. But before we begin, Eloise and Christine, one at a time, please introduce yourselves, who you are and what you're doing right now. We'll start with Eloise.
Hi, everyone. So great to be here with you all. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Houston with my master's in biology and also a UT alumna. I'm currently working as a research associate for a research consulting firm and looking for full-time work in a clinical setting. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm applying to medical school. So that's a job on itself.
Yeah, awesome.
And
Yes. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. My name is Christine Andrafor. I am a fourth-year student at the University of Texas at Austin. I am an honored biology major, and I am also currently applying to medical school. I actually have an interview in exactly a week. So that's really nerve-wracking, but yes, that's me.
That's great.
All righty. Thank you, ladies, for introducing yourselves. We'll go ahead and jump right in with our hot topic for tonight of networking. So in a simple sentence or two, we'll start with Christine this time. What is networking to you?
Yeah, so I would say networking is certainly like building relationships and social ties to connect with people in the career or field that you hope to be in the future. So you're going to be using those social ties as resources to, grow as a person while also building upon the relationships you started with.
Awesome. I hear relationships, building. I love it. What about you, Eloise? What is networking to you?
Yeah, when I think about networking, I first think about my network, right? And so I think my networks are the circles that the circles that I find myself in. And so networking to me is either expanding those circles or finding ways to put myself in new circles that I haven't maybe been in before.
Ooh, circles. Ooh, pods. Okay, I love it. Interconnected. Thank you. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, but when I think of networking, a different lens, it's also with people that are not related to my field, right? Or different people when it comes to activities and service. I can network with different people there, or just naturally meeting people. I met Dr. Chinwe in a setting that I didn't ever think I would know her this long and connect with her for this long. So happens intentionally sometimes and on accident as well. So with networking, a lot of students hear the word networking and it's like a trigger word of like, ooh, like people are either really good at networking or so-so at networking, or they run away from the opportunity to network. So from your perspective as a mentee, to your, also as a mentor for certain undergrad students as well, what do you think are some barriers to networking effectively and making a long-lasting relationship?
I would definitely say having those resources available. Definitely, I would also think like the idea of nepotism and favoritism and people closing off those that ability to network and to build that circle that Liz was talking about. can be really, really difficult because, there's this saying that has always stayed with me, like talent may be equally distributed, but the idea of opportunity and resources is just not. And so I think that right there is the hardest part about networking.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, that's really good, Christine. To add to that, I'll say I think from like a individual level, I think a fear of rejection can be a hard barrier towards networking. I think especially like in academic spaces, so many of us are used to excelling, we're used to yes, and so we're afraid of hearing no. But one thing I've come to learn is that that's the worst thing that someone's going to say to you. If you reach out, the worst thing they're going to say is no, but the best thing they can say is yes. And so from that, you have a whole new opportunity and a whole new door that's open. I think another barrier to networking sometimes is the inability or the unwillingness to create time for it. Inability, maybe, like a job conflict, work conflicts, but also maybe the unwillingness to create the time to go to a networking event or to put yourself in spaces where you're going to meet different people because you don't quite see the value in it.
And I would also like to add to that really quickly. I would like to say on a personal level, like not knowing where to start. I think when people hear networking, they think, okay, I can do this, then do that, then do that. Like it's going to be something linear. And the fact of the matter is it's not. Like Grace said, it can be very spontaneous and it can be someone not in your field. And I feel like if we just broaden our idea of what networking is, that could help us instead of it being like, okay, this is the first step and this is the second step.
I like that.
I'm curious to know from you all's perspective, because a lot of organizations and institutions try to create programs to foster that opportunity to network, and there are some that try to make it very formal to assign like a mentor or have you in a program. Because when I was in training, I was part of the SMART program at Baylor. It's a summer medical and research training program, and they assign you to a particular clinician to try to start off that networking relationship. And what we found is like there's some that are natural and it works and some that don't. Do you guys have any sense of like tips or ideas or thoughts about what makes those kinds of programs either work or don't work, in your opinion? Because one thing Christine mentioned was related to that nepotism, and because it's easy to network, and if you have people in certain roles and certain careers, like I think I was the first doctor in my family. so in the sense of like, well, what if certain young people don't have access to people in the fields that they want to go into? And so that's why there are a lot of programs that are trying to be formalized in creating those connections. But I'm curious, I mean, one, if you've attended or been part of any of those programs, or if you've heard of programs that were more successful than others, like what would you say are some keys to being able to foster some of that? Just curious.
So at my university at UT, there's this program that for underserved students that's called the University Leadership Network program. And so we're put into this program of about 500 freshmen, and we put into cohorts, and we get mentors, and we are kind of not forced, but we're encouraged to go to certain internships, talk to certain people about certain ideas. And for me personally, and for a lot of my friends, it hasn't worked because it's, like Dr. Chin said, very formal. I think a lot of people thrive off of just genuinely engaging with others and finding things that they have in common, but instead of looking at a person and thinking, oh, that's my opportunity, that's the resource, that's the thing I can do to get to this. I feel like it feels more genuine, it would be more successful.
Good to know.
I'll add to that. On the other hand, I think I've had more success in more formal mentor-mentee more formal programs. This past year, I was in a mentor program through the McGovern Medical School for underrepresented minorities in medicine. And so I was matched with a fourth-year medical student, and she's now moved on to do her, she's doing her residency at Boston Children's. But that, I feel like it was very successful because all the mentors, or at least my mentor, I can't speak on all of them, but my mentor was invested, like she knew from the get-go that she wanted to pour into another student. And I think that's what makes the formal relationships or the formally established programs successful, is having a mentor that's intentional about wanting to actually impact the life of their mentee. And I think also having clear expectations of what you want out of that relationship. Also, my master's program, we had to do a practicum course. And so we had to have a mentor. And that's actually the person who I'm doing my part-time work with right now. So even having that formal relationship with her was just super helpful, because it was someone that I knew that they signed up to be there for me. It's like, for me, I found more success in the formal settings. Yeah.
That makes sense. Because in some areas, it's, unless the mentee reaches out to the older person, sometimes there's no conversation. But from what you're saying, and like I said, you guys, I'm sure, are mentors in your own right at different levels, but however that relationship shifts, it's the idea that whoever is the supporter for that time being is also reaching out for that support and connection. So that's a very key thing to know. Thanks for that.
I can add a tad bit. I've had both of the experiences, because I was in ULN, so the same program that Christine was in, and then I've also had official and unofficial mentorship in pharmacy school. With ULN, I will say I have to think about it from the perspective of, it was students being mentors to students, and the mentors, that was their job. So they got paid to be a mentor in a sense, right? It wasn't like, oh, I'm really passionate about pouring into the next generation. It was more like, this could help me pay for school, And so I think it's a little bit less eager. There are some people that are like, getting paid and still on fire, but very few. As opposed to when I got into pharmacy school, through my institution, every student has a mentor that's a faculty. And so that one was like automatically matched. And in the beginning, it was like, oh, what are you interested in? I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this field. And that's the end of the relationship. Right. And it was like very limited. But then I have part 3, which is one for like, y'all know, like SNMA, or Student National Medical Association. So with the pharmacy students, so SNAFA. And these pharmacists would apply to be a mentor, and I would apply to be a mentee. And based on our like compatibility, they would match us. And so for that program, I felt like I have the strongest mentorship. And then we had monthly talks. So each month they would give us, hey, you should talk about this month. And so it'd be interviews, or it'd be like self-care, summer internships, how to deal with burnout. So my mentor was at Johns Hopkins, and I was like, oh my gosh, Johns Hopkins. I was scared, but she was so genuine. And she was like telling us about how much mentorship meant to her when she was younger. So she poured back into students. So I feel like when you have a guideline, or commonalities that match people, it flows a little bit better. So with that being said, thinking about mentorship, go ahead, Elise.
Yeah, can I add to that really quick?
Of course.
I think having a matching process is super valuable, because that was something that was in my program. Like I really just stood up as I was like, I would like to have a Black woman. I would also like to have someone that I could talk about faith with, because that's, that's important to me. And they did a great job. So, I feel like if I hadn't been matched, I'm not saying that, anyone can mentor, but there's certain ways in which, like you said, a real connection relationship can be established. So not only having someone that's already intentional about pouring into you, but having someone that's going to be more suitable to you and to your needs and to your experiences. I think that's really valuable.
That's key. I think that screening process is very, very key, because what the person looking for that support, is seeking, and you try to match that with, the supporter. So that's awesome. Thanks. Those are key things. Hopefully, for those of you, listening in, as we talk about these things, consider some of these concepts to add to your programs as well. Thanks.
Definitely. My next question for you all is, can you think of a specific time or experience, whether at UT or not at UT, where you have networked intentionally or non-intentionally that has led you or has helped you on your journey to medicine? I know that was a deep question.
I can go first.
Okay.
I think I know not everyone always considers this as networking, but even I feel like the most networking that I've done that I guess didn't start as intentional networking has been with the relationships that I had with my professors. Given that a lot of those professors were the people that, like, to this day, like, they wrote my medical school letters, or they're like trying to guide me in terms of finding employment. And so it's I think those are some relationships that I didn't intentionally go in thinking I'm gonna get to know this person so that they can get me a job in 2 years. Like, no, it was just going in there and being genuine with myself and asking questions because I was confused with the class. But when I think about intentional experiences that I've had with networking, I think they're mostly centered around the student organizations I was in. So the Black Health Professionals organization at UT was really great at providing networking opportunities. They had Barbecue with the Docs, which is a really great way to, meet Black physicians and Black health professionals in Austin. They also had a number of just having speakers come in, just getting that exposure. I think that was great. And then also social organizations like the African Student Organization, being able to speak with alumni who were previously in that organization, that those are networking opportunities that I definitely took advantage of and would recommend all undergraduate students to take advantage of, because it's there, it's for you. It's like a plate of people that were in your position at one point and they want to help you succeed. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I was definitely going to say, for me, it was work, like the jobs that I have on campus. I am a resident assistant, I tutor, and also my student organization. So BHPO, which in the long run helped me create my own organization. So it was like a kind of like a domino effect for me. So through BHPO, I was able to meet Dr. Chinwe, which was, I don't know if I told her this, but it changed like my path, because I felt more encouraged and more empowered to go into medicine, because for me personally, I didn't really see as Black women doctors. They would come and talk, but having personal relationship with them and working with them was not something that I was able to do. So with BHPO, that really helped me a lot. And BHPO also helped me with shadowing. So shadowing is a big deal. And I feel like that has helped me really be like, okay, yes, medicine is for me, because I get to actually be in that environment. And so through BHPO, I shadowed another doctor, which helped me gave me the confidence to contact other doctors via email or like through phone. And that like I said, it's been like a domino effect of like empowerment and being able to genuinely meet with other people that I want to be when I grow up. Or when I get older. I'm already grown up, but when I get older. And so for me, it's definitely been my organization and my work. When I tutor biology. I've been able to meet with different professors that are not my own. And through that, we build connections. They've written my letter of recommendations because I've been able to build relationships with their students. And so those are two things that I feel like has changed my entire path at UT, and it's been so helpful overall. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Love to hear it. Love to hear.
Yeah, this is really great to hear. Sorry, Grace, were you gonna say something?
Oh no, that's it. Love to hear it.
What you're saying really warms my heart, because I today earlier on I watched a speech that Lupita Nyong'o gave about how she got into acting. Because at first she didn't think that acting was for her because of how dark her skin was. And she wrote her book, specifically to address and to help empower other younger girls. But her story about like the switch that had her start to think about herself in that future role was her seeing a model who was dark, and I can't remember the name of that model. But she was like, if she could be there looking like me, then surely I can be there too. And so I think, one of the things that I'm getting out of this conversation is really, one, pairing folks and connecting, future generation of our professionals, with people who are similar to them in some way, whether it's through their culture, whether it's through ethnicity, nationality, but something about that connection is important to have, because that's the empowering part of it, is you being able to see yourself in that future role. And so it's just really good to hear. It's really, really good to hear that you all have had those experiences. Yeah, my 2 cents.
Oh, we love it. You need to share that video with me so I can hear about that. Because chocolate, anyway, that's another conversation. But to wrap up our time here, I have one more question for you lovely ladies. What advice would you give students who are, entering into undergrad or about to apply to medical, any advice that you would give to students on how to connect and be effective in their networking, or just being an effective mentee as well?
If I could say anything, I know how cliche this may sound, but literally just be yourself, be as personable as you can. During my shadowing experience that I had from March to May, at the end of it, she told me how relatable I was and how easy I was to talk to and how easy I was to communicate with. And I feel like and that's just me being myself. And so whatever unique characteristics you have, if you just display those and be as genuine as you can, with your intentions, I feel like that will help you build relationships as seamless as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, you can only be yourself at the end of the day. To that, I'll add, and I already said this earlier, but be clear about what you want out of that relationship, so that that way you can't be disappointed if they didn't fulfill a need that you never expressed that you wanted, So be clear about what you want out of that relationship. Also, do not assume you're a burden. That is something I tell my friends all the time. Don't assume you're a burden. If you're there to be your mentor, then reach out to them, because they're there to support you.
That's a good point.
Good point.
From the mentor perspective, do you have any advice for us? What are some things that we should do more of? What are some things that we should do less of to be able to really support that relationship for you? Because sometimes, I'll have to say, there's a lot of intention. There's some who volunteer for that role to support, a future professional, but sometimes we don't always get it right. And for those young people who may not, there's always that intimidation factor, right? And it's do you have any advice for us, one, to be more self-aware about it? How do we, how do we walk that line to be more supportive?
Mm-hmm. I can speak on that. So for me, I've tried many times to get a formal mentor that's older than me, that's been in medical school, or that's, in some kind of professional area that I would love to work in. And for me, it's been difficult because it's been, okay, we're on Zoom. Okay, let's get to work. What are you trying to do here? I would like for them to kind of hear my story. It may take a few conversations, but just to really, really hear me out in terms of, what I've gone through, what has led me to this point. I know it's go time, and we're trying to, be as best as we can and make sure there's more diversity in medicine, more equity. And I understand that. And I would just hope that they would take the time to, hear my stories, my struggle, my goals, and let's have that genuine conversation before we go into the checklist, the checkbox. That would be so helpful.
That's good. That's a good point. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I don't have much to add. If anything, I think what might help is, keeping things open and transparent, and not saying you have to show your whole life, your whole past, but mentees, we only see you for where you are right now. So being we will have the chance to share our story, share your story, and share your why,
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say transparency, because it's kind of like the white coat phenomenon I learned in school, where people see you in white coat and they just assume perfection, you're on top of it. We as students, we want to be able to see that you're like us in your like your struggles, in a sense, like, oh, I was in medical school, I didn't always make all the A's, or I messed up on that cadaver, like, something transparent.
You mean show that we're human? Like, what you talking about?
There you go. Something like that. And then being encouraging. Like, sometimes I feel like my own personally, it took me a long time to get to, I guess, like the goodness. Like, school was always hard in the beginning, but right now I feel like I'm learning. I've perfected a lot of things that were rough and before. And like I tell my mentees all the time, like, I didn't get here in the blink of an eye. It took a while to get there. And so I encourage them with my struggle. Like, I was there. Like, I understand. You can do this. You can do this. You can do this. Like I say, you can do this so many times. And I don't hear that as much from like my mentors that are a pharmacist.
And if I can add just one more thing, I feel like if we, like in that mentor-mentee relationship, know our limits and our boundaries and make sure we declare them, I feel like that would be so helpful, so much easier, because we're not superheroes, we cannot fix every inch of our, our issues, and we can't get you specifically to the place you like want to be in this moment in time. I feel like just knowing your limits and stating them is helpful.
Good.
Very sound advice. I love it.
But that is all the questions I have for you, beautiful ladies. Thank you so much for letting us pick your brains and grab some knowledge out of them. Wow, this even motivated me. I got some work to do now. As the school year is starting and things like that, I got to pour into my mentees a little bit more and be intentional.
Isn't that right? That is so true. And I think sometimes we feel like we don't have enough of us to share, but what Christine said is just know your limits, share your limits, know your boundaries, and be clear about expectations, as Eloise mentioned. But this has been really great information, I think, for all who are listening. Thank you for joining us today. We've been talking about networking. As you all know, there's so many levels and parts to this. And so don't be surprised. You'll hear another session pop up to talk about networking from a different perspective on a different topic. I feel someone mentioned about, empowering self-esteem. Like, that's a whole nother level and a whole nother conversation that we need to make time for. But thank you all for joining us. And for those of y'all listening, please be part of this conversation. If you have any thoughts, questions, ideas, reach out to us at info@austinbpa.com. Again, that's info@austinbpa.com. If you'd like to donate, would appreciate that as well too. And you support someone out there, whoever's looking to join you in the ranks. Feel free to listen to the tips that were shared today. And for the mentees, be courageous. And just go out there and rock it. You can do it. You can do it, like Reese says. And I wish you all, lovely ladies, great success. It's been great to watch you on your journeys. And yes, enjoy. Have a good evening.